Welcome to This Is How We Create, a show that digs deeper into the creative life of contemporary artists of color. Discover what feeds their creativity and how they found or are finding their artistic voice. Through these intimate and candid conversations, you'll gain insights into the lives of creative professionals of color that are hard to find anywhere else.
Hey, welcome back to This Is How We Create. My name is Martine Severin, your host. So today I am sharing an episode that we did a few years back, and it's a quarterly review. Now, quarterly reviews are really wonderful. It's a framework that allows you to check in on the goals that you made at the beginning of the year. That said, at this time of recording this mini episode that's going out to you, it is 2025, and it's the summer of 2025, which means that there are a lot of things that are going on in our world, or at least in the US, that makes it feel like, well, that life is really hard. There are people who are going through a lot of hardships. When we were prepping for this episode, I was like, well, this whole mid-year check-in on your goals might feel a little bit tone deaf. With that in mind, I thought I would come in to chat a little bit in this intro before we get into the mini episode. The content of this episode is really pretty good. The advice is about reflecting on your goals, checking in with yourself, and being honest about what's working, what isn't working, and all that solid stuff. But listening to myself from back then, oh boy, I could hear it so clearly. I was trying to sound so smart. I was trying to be the perfect host, and I was trying to say all of the right things in all of the right ways. And in essence, I was really performing, and I was trying to be a good student instead of, well, just being me. And my son, who's the perfect critic, honestly, because he's really truthful about spotting things. Like, he's a tween. Kids are great at spotting when people aren't being genuine. He often tells me, Mama, you have like your podcast voiced on. You don't sound like yourself. And in listening to this episode that you're going to listen to now, you might feel a little bit of that. But you know what? I'm sharing this episode with you anyway. One, because the content is really helpful, especially if you're feeling stuck or scattered right now. But two, maybe more importantly, because it's a perfect example of how much I've relaxed into this podcast. And I'm sure that I have more relaxing to do, but I guess this is what it is. We grow through our work and we become the person that we're trying to become through action and through repeated action. But as I listen to this old version of myself, I can hear the trying. I can hear me wanting people to like me and the careful crafting of every sentence that sounds just so. I can even hear myself that, I created a punchline in the copy that I wrote for this. And, but I'm proud of past me, because you can't go through this life trying and succeeding without a little bit of cringe. So whether you're listening to this because you need a quarterly reminder, and trust me, in times like these, checking in with yourself without judgment and reflecting on where you are is more important than ever. Or whether you're here because you're also learning to show up more authentically in your own work, I just want you to know that you really don't have to be perfect to be valuable. You don't have to be perfect to reach your dreams. You just have to do. And your art sure doesn't have to be flawless to matter. Your voice doesn't have to be polished to be worth hearing. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do, it's simply to offer your honest and perfect self. You're still figuring out self to the world, because I think it does us all a disservice to appear as if we all have it together. But in reality, we're all like our 12-year-old or like our teenage self, just feeling uncomfortable and not knowing where we're going. Please enjoy this episode. What an intro, huh? Please enjoy this episode, this mini episode that I put together way back in the day. Hello, friends. Welcome back to This Is How We Create. My name is Martine Severin. I am your host. Today, we are going to be focusing on a solo episode where we'll talk about how to create a quarterly review, either for your own personal life or for your business, as long as you have goals to measure and are looking to understand what you accomplished in the year and how you can use that data to influence what you plan for next year. This episode is the one for you. For me, at the end of each quarter, I take 2 hours of my time to complete a personal and professional progress report. I use this time to reflect on the goals that I made at the beginning of the year and to gauge my progress so far. Then in November, I gather and reread the reports that I created for each quarter to create a plan for the following years. I've been using this process for 10 years now, and I'm always amazed by how much fun it is to be in tune with what you want in life and how rewarding it is to see those things come to be. So the backstory for this process started years ago when I was a program manager at a nonprofit housed at Harvard University. In that position, the team and I launched countless of programs over several years. Before starting a new program, we created a program description, a plan to how to achieve our ends, and detailed the needed metrics to measure our success. Similarly, when we wrapped a project, we would do a project recap or a postmortem, as we used to say, to identify what worked, what didn't work, and what are the best practices we learned. Each quarter, we wrote a short internal report to summarize project updates. Now, these reports didn't necessarily need to go to anybody else. It was just a way for us to capture data, to capture information, so that it would inform what we do in the following year. So you can guess, I came to fall in love with strategic planning and even got a certificate in strategic planning at Harvard. You know, it was only a matter of time until your girl started implementing the same strategic process that I learned then into my own life. And here is why I use the fundamentals of strategic planning in my life. And I'm hoping you fall in love with this process too. I am an avid reader, and it's one of my greatest joys in life. Every once in a while, I love to pick up a romance novel. Why? Because at the end of the story, everyone's going to have a happy ending, or at least the main characters will have a happy ending. One day it just occurred to me, what if I could write my own happy ending? What if I could write what my goals are and figure out exactly how I can get to where I want to go? Kind of like a book. So that's how I started, really. I would write out the results I would want in my life. Now, I want to give you a metaphor. So imagine that you're going on a road trip. You start out knowing your destination and you figure out which route you'll take and you make plans for pit stops and detours along the way. Heck, you might even put aside a bit of emergency money as a contingency plan in case things go awry. Steadily, despite pit stops or detour here and there, you're bound to arrive at your destination. So in the same vein, a strategic plan helps me determine where I am in my journey. It helps me identify what's important. It helps me figure out the actions I need to take to get further along in my journey and put in processes for accountability as well. Having a plan clears headspace for me so that my anxiety doesn't enjoy the spotlight at center stage. Rather, I focus on doing and executing on the things and the actions that are going to get me closer to what my goal is, as well as leaving room for fun and leaving room for excitement to happen and for detours as well. If we're still using that road trip metaphor, if your car breaks down, You wouldn't simply open the hood and take out the gears and filters and you'll start unscrewing anything. Can you tell that I don't know much about cars? Anyway, so if your car breaks down, you'll either fix it or you'll call roadside assistance, or a mechanic will likely do a diagnostic prior to fixing anything. I use the quarterly check-in in my business and in my personal life. And let me tell you a secret. My husband and I use it as well to keep our marriage on track. So the process is really magical, particularly since it makes you focus on the things that really matter. Since you're focusing on the things that matter, your success and the things that are important to you are a foregone conclusion, right? Are you excited? I'm so excited. Okay. Let's get into the nitty-gritty about the quarterly check-in itself. At the beginning of the year, I set a big, audacious goal, like something huge, but doable. And I use the quarterly check-in to stay on course. To start, I make the quarterly check-in as fun as possible because it's important for me to make my mind associate pleasure and newness and excitement with reviewing where I've been. I'll generally take myself to a lovely cafe or a restaurant or a sunny corner of my house, or even I'll do this while I am on vacation. I bring colored pencils, I bring notebooks, I bring a pad of paper, Post-its. I bring a lot of different goodies because I never quite know where my mind will take me in terms of notes that I want to write for the future. And I start by reviewing the check-ins that I did for the first and for the second quarter. And the reason I do this is because a year goes by really quickly, but at the same time, it doesn't. For the check-in, I asked myself 7 questions in total. And don't worry about taking notes on this as you maybe in the car or you're going on a walk or maybe you're washing dishes or doing laundry. I have a handy dandy download for you to check out in the show notes so you can download the worksheet that goes along with this episode. The first thing that I do, I go over what my goals were for the year. In very broad strokes, I wrote down my 3 goals. And those 3 goals could be anything from increase revenue by X%, collaborate on X number of photo shoots. And it could also be focusing on marketing in very specific ways so that I can increase my business and I can increase my client base. Regardless though, I focus on 3 goals for the year. And why do I do that? Honestly, there's not really a good reason. I just keep going back to the KISS method, keeping it simple, stupid. Because when you try to focus on too much, you get stressed out, you stretch your resources, and you dilute your efforts all around. So I found that 3 is a really good way to do it. And generally, I swear by the 3, and that's why we do 3. If you want to do more, if you tend to focus on more, certainly you can do more than the 3 goals in the review. Okay, first we talk about what my goals were for the year. And the next thing I do is I list out the steps that I've taken to achieve my goal. It's great to have goals, but if you're not doing anything for them, if you're not doing anything to achieve the ends of your goal, then there's not really any point, is there? So this is the point where I list out the steps that I've taken. And it might be that in a quarter, I've only worked on one thing. I've only taken one step. And some quarters have done everything. Rarely. It's only happened once. It's rare. But whatever it is that has happened in your year, be honest with yourself, because that's the whole point of this check-in with yourself. You have to be honest because that honesty will help you see what you need to do next and how you need to grow. One thing to remember about this process is to be gracious. Don't judge yourself too harshly. The goal for this review is to be impartial and to act as if you are a third party, non-judgmental third party who's just writing out a review of what has happened in a person's life. Next, I'd like you to write a quick list or a paragraph, depending on your mood, on what are the 3 actions you need to take to bring you closer to achieving your quarter's goal, or heck, this year's goal. Whatever the actions are, just write them down, because let's face it, action is king. We can talk about executing on our goals, or we can create busy work, but until we make meaningful action, we won't get closer to our milestones. Next, let's talk about some of the things that are getting in the way of you achieving your goals. If I'm being honest, at times I pick up bad habits that I must break in order to be successful in what I've set out to do. I find that it's a really great idea, even during this review process, to take a few minutes to think about how are you making your life harder? What are the things that you're doing that is standing in your way? And so from there, you try to find a solution and you stick with it. The last part of the review is to share your review with an accountability partner, or perhaps with a friend, a mentor, or a significant other. The goal is to fill that person in with what you've accomplished, and more importantly, to set a date on the calendar to follow up with them about what you've set out to do. We haven't talked about SMART systems as we've gone through the review, and usually through the process of creating the review, I tend to embed SMART goals, but in a very not so rigorous way. And if you haven't heard of SMART goals, essentially whatever goals you have to be specific. They have to be measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, meaning that the goal should be very precise with no room for interpretation. So you try to always come up with goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Last thing I want to say about the accountability partner, just be sure that whoever you are sharing your review with is someone who is very supportive, someone who's got your back, and someone who wants the best for you. That's it. So you'll find the download link to the worksheet in the show notes. Please take a look. Have a go, fill it out. All right, I'll see you later. Bye.
Hi there. I have a quick favor to ask you before you go. If you're loving the show, would you mind taking a quick second to leave us a 5-star review on your favorite go-to podcast app? Here's the thing. Those reviews are like magic fairy dust. They help other creatives of color discover our show and tap into their own artistic superpowers. While you're at it, why not subscribe to our Substack newsletter, Creative Matters? Creative Matters is like a weekly dose of inspiration delivered straight to your inbox. You can find the link to subscribe in the show notes. All right, that's all that I have for you today. I can't wait to see you on the next episode. Bye.